Avoidants always crumble when you understand this one truth. Not because you manipulate them, not because you play the same game they do, but because you finally step out of it. You see, people with avoidant attachment don't fear love itself. They fear what love reveals: the loss of control, the exposure of need, the terrifying possibility of being truly seen. They've spent years mastering distance as a survival skill. To them, closeness feels dangerous. And that's why they build relationships that always stay one layer away from intimacy. Enough warmth to keep you close, enough coldness to keep them safe. If you've ever been in love with someone like that, you know the ache of confusion. You replay conversations, analyze silences, try to read between the lines of every text. One day they're open, the next they vanish. You start believing their detachment means you did something wrong. You lower your needs, silence your voice, just to keep the connection alive. But here's the truth: their behavior isn't about you, it never was, it's about fear. Avoidants learned early that needing someone can hurt. So they keep control by pulling away first. They act like they don't care, but indifference is just armor. Beneath that calm exterior is someone terrified that love will expose their vulnerability. They crave connection but fear the cost of it. So they stay near enough to feel wanted, but far enough to feel safe. And unknowingly, you become the chaser, thinking your love can heal them, thinking your patience will prove your worth. But in that dynamic, you slowly give away your power. You start to measure your value through their response, your peace through their attention. That's the illusion avoidants live on. They thrive on your reactivity because it confirms their control. The more you chase, the more they retreat. The more you question, the more they disappear. But everything changes when you understand this. Their power exists only as long as you don't understand yours. You hold the key to the entire dynamic, your attention. It's the currency of every emotional exchange. The moment you realize your energy is a resource, not a gift to be handed out freely, the pattern starts to break. When you stop explaining yourself, stop fixing their silence, stop rewarding emotional absence with effort, something powerful happens. You shift from "why don't they choose me?" to "why am I choosing so little?" That's the moment avoidants begin to crumble, quietly, subtly, beneath the surface. Because for the first time, they're no longer mirrored by your anxiety. Their distance no longer provokes chaos. You've taken back emotional gravity. Detachment isn't about cutting someone off. It's about rebalancing the scales. It's choosing clarity over confusion. You stop trying to prove your worth and start protecting your peace. You don't beg for attention, because your worth doesn't live in someone else's reaction anymore. You might still care deeply, but you'll care differently. You'll learn that love without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. You'll stop mistaking emotional labor for devotion. Because love isn't about rescuing someone from their own fear, it's about meeting where both people feel safe enough to stay open. And here's where the transformation begins. When you stop reacting, you start seeing. You notice patterns instead of promises. You see what people choose, not what they could be. Avoidants depend on the fog, on your confusion, your hope, your constant analysis. But when you show up with consistency, with calm presence, the fog lifts. And in that clarity, their instability has nowhere to hide. Your steadiness becomes uncomfortable for them. Your silence no longer chases, it reflects. It mirrors back their avoidance, their fear, their inconsistency. For the first time, they're left facing themselves. And that's when avoidants begin to feel the weight of their own behavior. Not because you punished them, but because you stopped participating in the dance. They sense the difference, the absence of your emotional pursuit, the calm in your responses. They notice that their usual methods, pulling away, going silent, sending mixed signals, no longer have power. This is the paradox of detachment. When you stop chasing love, you start commanding respect. Not through force, but through presence. You begin to realize that consistency is a mirror. It reflects everything that isn't real. Avoidants crumble not from confrontation, but from clarity. Your clarity. Your refusal to engage in confusion exposes everything they've been hiding behind. So instead of asking, "why are they pulling away?" you begin asking, "why am I tolerating it?" That single question shifts everything. Because now, your energy is no longer chasing potential, it's honoring truth. You see, emotional detachment doesn't kill love. It purifies it. It filters out the illusions of control, dependency, and fear. It allows only what's genuine to remain. Avoidants aren't your enemy, they're just stuck in a survival pattern. but you're not responsible for healing it. You're responsible for recognizing when your love has become self-sacrifice. Because healing doesn't happen when you lose yourself trying to save someone else. It happens when you choose yourself without guilt. And that's what changes everything. When you stop reacting to inconsistency, you start responding to reality. You create emotional space, not as punishment, but as protection. You stop rewriting texts, stop over-explaining, stop wondering what you did wrong. You return to stillness. And from that stillness comes power, quiet, calm, uncheckable power. Avoidants expect chaos. They expect to be chased. But when your calm replaces confusion, it exposes their own unrest. It forces them to see that the control they thought they had was never real. It was borrowed, from your reaction, from your energy, from your need to be chosen. Once you reclaim that, everything changes. Your silence becomes strength. Your distance becomes dignity. And your consistency becomes truth. When you finally detach from the need to be chosen, you begin to see love from a higher place. Not as a chase, not as a test, but as an exchange of energy. And suddenly, all the mixed signals, the disappearing acts, the moments that used to leave you anxious, they start to look different. You stop seeing mystery where there's just avoidance. You stop confusing silence with depth. You stop making excuses for absence and start making space for presence. Avoidants don't expect you to hold your ground. They expect you to bend, to adapt, to explain. But when you stand still in self-respect, they feel the shift immediately. They're used to being the center of your emotional orbit. When that gravity disappears, they lose their rhythm. You're no longer orbiting their moods or waiting for them to decide when intimacy is safe. You've taken your power back by remembering that peace is not earned through someone else's permission. Boundaries become sacred here. Not walls, not punishments, just clarity. Clarity that says, I will not chase what runs. I will not explain what silence already revealed. I will not trade my peace for connection. That's not coldness. It's emotional maturity. It's knowing that love without respect always leads to emptiness. When you hold these boundaries, avoidants often react with confusion. They may accuse you of being distant or uncaring, not realizing that what they're really feeling is the absence of control. They've mistaken your willingness to chase for proof of love, but real love doesn't demand self-erasure. It thrives in mutual safety where both people can show up without fear. And this is the deeper truth. Detachment doesn't end connection, it refines it. It strips away the illusion that love means endurance and shows you that love means alignment. You stop trying to earn affection from those who can't offer it freely. You start protecting your energy like it's sacred because it is. Avoidants crumble not because you've turned your back, but because your self-respect no longer feeds their illusion. You're no longer the mirror reflecting their story of control. You've become a reflection of stability, and that steadiness forces truth to surface. Some will step closer when they feel that safety. Others will drift away because they can't meet it. Either way, you win because you're finally in alignment with reality, not fantasy. And let's be honest, it takes strength to stay calm in the presence of inconsistency. It takes wisdom to walk away not out of anger, but out of clarity. It's not about winning the emotional tug-of-war. It's about dropping the rope entirely. When you stop competing for love, you start embodying it. Consistency is your quiet revolution. Every time you choose calm over chaos, reflection over reaction, truth over hope, you reclaim another piece of yourself. You stop needing validation from people who only respond when you're hurting. You stop negotiating your boundaries for crumbs of attention. You begin to realize that the love you were chasing was never meant to fill the void. It was meant to awaken your awareness. Because the moment you stop trying to control someone else's behavior, you regain control over your own peace. Avoidants can't survive in clarity. They rely on fog, the kind that keeps you questioning your worth and trying harder to be seen. But clarity burns through that fog. When you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And once you stop personalizing their distance, their silence loses its power. You start seeing that their withdrawal isn't rejection, it's reflex. A reflex built from fear, not truth. That's when the whole dynamic shifts. Their distance no longer stings, it starts to reveal patterns. You begin to ask different questions. What part of me thought I needed to earn love? Why did I believe that patience meant loyalty instead of self-neglect? Those questions don't just free you from the avoidant, they free you from your own conditioning. Because deep down, Many of us who fall for avoidance are replaying an old story, one where love was conditional, where closeness always felt unstable, where care had to be earned. Avoidance mirror that story back to us. But healing comes when you rewrite it. You stop chasing love that keeps you small. You stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's fear. You begin to realize that your stillness, your quiet presence, is the loudest declaration of self-worth you can make. In that space, something beautiful happens. You no longer resent the avoidant, you understand them. You see their fear, their fragility, their longing for control. But you also see that it's not your job to fix it. Compassion replaces resentment, but distance remains, not as a defense, but as wisdom. Because real detachment isn't the absence of love, it's the absence of illusion. It's the realization that love without reciprocity isn't love. It's self-abandonment. So when you start to live with clarity and boundaries, avoidance either rise to meet your steadiness, or they fade away. But in both cases, you grow. You stop living in emotional limbo, waiting for someone else's fear to heal. You start living in alignment with your truth, and that truth is peace. And maybe the most profound part of all this is realizing that you never lost control, you just forgot you had it. Every time you choose peace over pursuit, silence over begging, presence over panic, you teach your nervous system a new story. I am safe, even without their validation. That's when you become unshakable. Because you've learned the lesson most people never do, that love built on anxiety is not love at all. Real love doesn't make you question your worth. It deepens it. So if you've ever been caught in that cycle, chasing, waiting, hoping, let this be your reminder. Your value isn't defined by someone who fears intimacy. Your peace is not negotiable. And the moment you decide that, everything changes. You stop running after people who run from themselves. You stop begging for connection from those who confuse love with control. You start walking with calm certainty, knowing that the right connection won't need to be forced. And maybe, just maybe, the avoidant in your life will feel that energy, not as punishment but as invitation. An invitation to rise, to meet you in truth, to face their fear. But whether they do or not, you've already won. Because you chose clarity over chaos, and that choice changes everything. If this message spoke to you, take a moment, breathe, reflect, and remember your worth. And if you're ready to keep learning how to heal, grow, and build emotionally grounded connections, subscribe to this channel. Because every week, we uncover more of the psychology behind love, fear, and the human heart, and help you turn emotional confusion into emotional strength. You deserve peace. You deserve clarity. And it starts with understanding this truth. The avoidant only has power until you remember yours.